Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to start by thanking you all for taking the time and opportunity to attend our webinar today. This is the second webinar with HEA. And firstly, my name is Hussam Habib, and I am the country director for Farmer to Farmer Food Safety and Quality project. Farmer to Farmer is a USAID funded program, and it is implemented by Land O'Lakes Venture 37. Land O'Lakes is a US farmer-owned cooperative that serves more than 300,000 farmers at the US. To practice and implement social responsibility activities, Land O'Lakes Inc. established Land O'Lakes Venture 37, which is a non-for-profit organization that leverages the corporate expertise to implement food and agriculture programs around the world. It's founded in 1981, and we are partnering with the donor and governments, including the USAID, the USDA, and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We work all around Africa, Asia, Middle East, all over the world actually. And in Egypt, we have more than 15 years of experience implementing food and agriculture programs all over the country. Historically, actually, we used to introduce technical assistance at the farm level. Most of the time, including agriculture production, pest management, irrigation, post-harvest handling, all of those under all of those topics. But now we have our main focus on food safety and quality. We understand that food safety and quality is a very important topic these days, and for organization like HEA, as we are exporting, and our the members, HEA members, products are at the high value markets, supermarkets, processing plants, and others, and exporting. For exporting, food safety and quality is very, very important as well. So we are implementing this program. It's a volunteering program, as I said. Usually our US volunteers are working directly with their counterparts, the farmers, food processors, and others. But due to COVID-19, this is very limited now, and we have halted all fielding activities. And our volunteers are working remotely from their houses and from their offices to provide the technical support. So we are here today in collaboration with HEA to conduct this webinar on BRC for fresh produce pack houses. We all understand that BRC as certificate and scheme is very important. It's recognized by the Global Food Safety Initiative, GFSI, and at the same time, it's one of the important requirements for exporting to the some of the very important international markets in Europe and America and others. So we are here today to listen, learn, and share our experience with Ms. Sherry Gruber, the food safety expert. Sherry used to work with Land O'Lakes, and now she's working for another company. And she has great experience. We'll talk about that shortly. Let's get back to our agenda. We'll have a welcoming speech from Mr. Midhat Al-Maligi, the Agriculture Service Manager in HEA. Then we'll have the presentation from Ms. Sherry Gruber. And of course, this will cover the BRC for fresh produce pack houses. Mr. Midhat, please, you have the platform.
Good evening, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank all the Land O'Lakes team, Farmer to Farmer project, especially Mr. Hussam Habib, Mr. Mahmoud Radi, and definitely our great consultant, Ms. Sherry Gruber. I'm Medhat Miligi. I'm the technical department manager in HEA. HEA stands for Horticulture Export Improvement Association. We're a private sector association established in 1996, and our name explains our target and focus. This association was established to simplify and to try to find solution to improve export of horticultural crops. Our main focus is the extension service in general, pre-harvest and post-harvest. We had the long years of experience in several governorates in Egypt. We were fulfilling needs of farmers, members and non-members to improve the sector as a whole. Lately, we established a department for certification, and this was to cope with the global dynamics. All the markets in Europe and other places now requires such certification like Global Gap, BRCs, HACCP, all these certifications worldwide. So we established this body, HEA Cert body, to simplify and to be a certification body here in Egypt and to serve also our members and non-members, and this to improve the amount, quality, and return of our horticultural crops export. Thank you very much again, and I think now we have to leave the floor to our great Sherry Gruber, and waiting forward for other cooperation in the near future. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Medhat, for your introduction and welcoming the audience and introducing HEA and your activities. This is great, and we are very honored and have the pleasure to work with you and coordinate activities. And we see a great impact of all of those activities. Now it's the time to present the U.S. volunteer and food safety expert, Ms. Sherry Gruber. Her presentation will cover the BRC in fresh produce packhouses. Sherry, as I said before, used to work for Land O'Lakes, and she's now working for another employer. But for your info, Land O'Lakes is encouraging staff and employees to volunteer their time and efforts for with farmer to farmer in many countries. So she worked before while she volunteered before while working with Land O'Lakes. She volunteered in Egypt, I think back in 2019, 2017, as I remember. She visited several Egyptian food processing facilities during her assignments. Actually, she introduced very successful seminar in HEA location. And this was about good manufacturing practices. And we have received the great feedback from the audience about their satisfaction about the webinar, the seminar that was conducted before. So please try to benefit from her experience and knowledge. Learn, discuss, and share. And we will have 15 minutes at the end to discuss any of your questions. Please feel free to post it at the questions and answers part or the chat, and we'll answer those at the end. Thank you so much, and over to you, Sherry.
There we go. So as Hussam said, I'm Sherry Gruber. A little bit about me is I do have a Bachelor's of Science in Dairy Science with a concentration in Dairy Products Technology. I also have minors in Ag Business and Accounting. I've been in the dairy industry for 32 years. Started as a temp secretary helping out in the office, and then I moved into the lab and just never left after that. I've worked at Land O'Lakes. I've worked at various other companies. I've done lab tech, lab lead, sanitation supervisor. Currently, I am the QC lab supervisor at a Sierra Nevada cheese company. It's a great company, and Land O'Lakes actually has been really helpful with us here because it's a smaller company, and Land O'Lakes is such a great organization that they even help little companies in the area. So we're grateful for them. That's nice. I do have certifications in HACCP, BRC, PCQI, and SQF, and auditing. So done quite a bit, and I enjoy every minute of it. So this first section is Introduction to the Food Safety Management System. So what is a food safety management system? Where'd it go? Okay, there it is. It's a systematic approach to controlling food safety hazards within a food business to assure that food is safe to eat. All businesses are expected to put in place, execute, and maintain the food safety management system based on the principles of HACCP, or the Hazard Analysis Critical Control Point. Basically, it's just a way to make sure that you are producing a food that is safe for consumers, and that it's a food that you would eat as well. The food safety management system is basically comprised of three main components: your prerequisite programs, your HACCP principles, and then documentation. One of the first things you do is you'd work on your HACCP principles, which would then help you figure out what your prerequisite programs are. And then the end and going on is documentation, which is probably one of the most important aspects of a food safety management system, because you want to be able to prove what you are doing all the time. So what is HACCP? It's Hazard Analysis Critical Control Point. So in your food process, you'll conduct a hazard analysis. You'll identify any critical control points. For those control points, you'll establish your critical limits. Then you'll establish monitoring procedures for those critical limits. One basic critical limit in the dairy industry is pasteurization. So we have to make sure that we pasteurize our products at the correct time and temperature. That's the basic one. So when you do it for pack houses, you do your analysis and you figure out what is critical for your systems, and then that's where you would establish monitoring procedures. If your monitoring procedures show that you're exceeding your critical limits, then you will establish critical corrective actions. And after that, you have your establishing your record keeping processes, and then your verification process. Now, the record keeping is your day-to-day information that you have that employees on the floor are writing down, and that is what is actually going on. Your verification is verifying that your monitoring procedures are catching all of the issues that you have. So you want to make sure you have a good verification process as well as a record keeping process. So HACCP, in a brief look, this slide is really good because it kind of shows you what HACCP really is. It's knowing your food products and know what makes them safe to consume. So you have, your turkey or your chicken. You look at at how you produce food products from start to finish by understanding the practical processes and the production environment. That's when you go out and you analyze your processes and make sure everybody understands what's going on and what could harm the product at every point. So you identify those hazards and decide where they could occur in the preparation process. Then you put in place preventative measures that control those hazards. Then you monitor those controls to make sure that you are keeping those hazards out. And of course, documentation, you write it all down and keeping records. Then you want to review and confirm that the HACCP system is working. You check weekly, monthly, quarterly, do audits just to make sure that everything is working properly. So the food safety management system, it identifies and controls food safety hazards at every stage of food preparation. So you have your hazard analysis, which we went over. Your prerequisite programs, those are your basic programs and practices that establish and maintain a hygienic environment. Basically, it's like your daily regime of monitoring food handlers' practices during food preparation, screening staff to ensure those who are unwell do not handle food. Like right now with COVID, so some of the things we're doing is every employee has a temperature check when they get here at work. And during that temperature check, we also ask, do you feel sick? Have you been coughing? Do you have loss of taste? So there's things that you will put into place as things unfold in the world, like COVID-19, to make sure that you are making a safe food. You also have regular pest control treatments and then cross-contamination prevention procedures. These are just some examples of prerequisite programs. Then the last part of a food safety management system was the documentation. So you want efficient and accurate maintenance of documents and records to ensure the food safety monitoring system is monitored easily, and it allows traceability of hazards to the contamination source. So these are basic prerequisite programs. Most companies have these basic ones. You can always add to them, but these are the ones that are the basics throughout the industries. You wanted to have a lot, track, and trace. Just so if you have a customer that has an issue with something and you want to be able to go back and find out what happened, where it is, if you need to have a voluntary recall or if something happens, you need to be able to trace all your ingredients back to their source, and then you need to also trace where your finished product is going. You need a program for sanitation. You need a program for GMP, specification compliance. This is the specifications for your produce and what you will have for their release so that you have your guidelines. Then you have material management and warehousing, document control, chemical control, pest control, incident management. Incident management is more or less floods, fires, natural disasters is what that would cover. Management responsibility, that's showing that the management is, what's the word? The management is behind their products 100% and they're committed to making a safe product. Then you have your positive release program, your non-conforming products, allergens, food defense, design control, microbiology and lab management, maintenance and calibration, and customer relations. So documentation, like I said, that is one of the main attributes of a good food management program. Because if it's not documented, it did not happen. And in all of your documents, you never want to use whiteout. If a mistake is made, and mistakes happen, you cross it out with one line and you write the information to the side and you initial and date it. You also want clear, legible, and to the point. So examples of documentation, this is one for our cheese room CIP. It shows which vat to or the curd line. And it shows the start times, the finish times, our temperatures, what our concentration was of our chemicals, any corrective actions if necessary, any follow-up results if we had a corrective action, and then the technician that ran the CIP and the chemicals. After this is done, then it has to be verified by somebody. For the CIP here, I'm the one that verifies it, and then I sign off on it. Just a different type of documentation. These are different tanks, 13 and 14. Same information, just laid out a little bit differently, depending on what your system is. This one has a lot going on it, but it's our chemical concentration checks. So we have foamers for foot foamers. We have a chlorine dip in our cheese room. We have our chemicals for our washing and our tunnels. And then we have our central sanitizer. So this is taken once a day and we put our results down, corrective actions, and then who actually did the test. And this is done once a day. So these are just 3 examples of documentation. Depending on your facility and what you do there depends on what type of documentation you would need. Now in the documentation, there's a few things you do want to have on this form. You want to make sure that you have where the form is located at the bottom left. That way anybody can find it. Then bottom right, it's part of your documentation control program. Shows your revision date, the supersedes date, and who approved this particular form. Trying to see what is going on here. Let's see. Trying to find. Trying to find where my full screen is, and it's not showing up. Just 1 minute. Let me see. Display settings, maybe.
Yes.
Nope. Let's see.
You can just stop share and then start share screen again.
Okay. See if that will do it. I don't know, did that work?
It's similar view, so you can get the presentation slideshow.
You can end slideshow.
Okay.
Okay, then click on the full screen button.
Okay. So full screen. Let's see. First time I'm doing this one, so.
That's okay.
I have just share screen down there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So before sharing a screen at the PowerPoint presentation,
Okay.
you do your slideshow.
Okay.
Okay. And then you can share screen and take the select the slideshow. you will have two files in front of you to share. One is the PowerPoint itself, and one is the slideshow of the PowerPoint. So you take the slideshow, not the PowerPoint itself.
Okay, let's see if that worked. Zoom.
And for a slideshow, you can press F5 at your PowerPoint.
Okay. That's what it's showing. Let me see if that did anything.
No, you need to share a
Share
screen
now.
first.
Yep. Let's see. There we go. I don't know if that worked or not. Where'd it go?
Great. This is just
Yes.
great.
Is that good?
Working well.
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay, let's see. So. Where'd it go here? No, it's not letting me go to the next screen. Oh, there it goes. Okay, that's better? Okay,
It's better, yeah.
okay, good.
Yes is good. Yes.
Okay, good. So the next is GFSI. So the Global Food Safety Initiative. What is it? It was created to establish benchmarks, standards for retailers worldwide to encourage food safety and consistency along all steps of the supply chain. So basically GFSI was to help all manufacturers, distributors throughout the world sell to each other. So we're all on the same page and we all have the same safety standards. It encompasses several different standards serving different needs of the specific entities seeking the certification. I like to think of GFSI as a parent. Their job is to make sure that all the children or the schemes and platforms follow the rules of food safety. If they do, they will maintain their GFSI certification. So as the parent, GFSI has created benchmark process where they compare procedures of food safety related schemes and platforms to the GFSI guidance document. The guidance document was first drafted with input from food safety experts, and it continues to help define the process in which food safety schemes can be benchmarked by GFSI and be recognized across the globe. So it started and it's helping companies like export to other countries, and it changes all the time. I mean, every year they bring out new things to help make it safer and make it better. So what does GFSI actually do? Well, every GFI standard effectively reviews three main things. Does the supplier say what they do? So that would be your policies, your procedures, your SOPs. Does the supplier do what they say? So they'll come on the facility and they'll observe the processes while you run. They'll interview employees. They'll inspect the facility. They'll also look at your documentation. This is why documentation is so important, because this is where you can prove that you do what you say you're doing in your policies and procedures. And does the supplier track what they do, what they say? So that's, like I said, reviewing the records. Putting all these elements together, the GFSI audit ensures that a supplier is producing a safe food year-round. And while it can be stressful for suppliers to learn that an important contact hinges on obtaining certification that they've never heard before, suppliers who successfully pursue the GFSI certification generally find that the effort invested leads to significant rewards. So yes, it is a little stressful the first time you go through this. I've been through two companies where it was brand new. But once you get past the first benchmark, it's easy to maintain, and it's a sense of pride. And it does lead to significant rewards because a lot more companies do want to buy your products. So what are the GFSI schemes? Food safety schemes are recognized by GFSI when it meets the food safety requirements defined in the GFSI guidance documents. And just remember that GFSI is an organization that benchmarks and improves auditing standards. There isn't technically any single audit called the GFSI audit, but they are the standards that benchmark the other audits. So different types of audits. For this particular presentation, it's going to be mainly with the BRC global standard, but there are a few others that are recognized throughout the world also. There's the Food Safety System Certification 22000. There's the International Features Standard, and there's SQF or Safe Quality Foods. I've worked at both companies that have BRC and Safe Quality Foods. They're both basically the same thing, just different organizations, little bit different schemes, but the base programs are the same. So the question then is, how do you know which scheme to pick? Well, each company is different and not all schemes are the same. It's not a one size fits all. So basically you would do your homework and figure out what is going to be right for you and your company. There is on the Food Safety or the Safe Food Alliance website, they do have a free ebook. It's called The Roadmap to GFSI. Oh, I forgot an F there, sorry about that. Certification. It's a good ebook to help you go through and see what scheme would be best for you and your company. So introduction to the BRC Global Standard for Food Safety. So what is BRC? BRC is the British Retail Consortium. It's a trade association that was established in the UK for food retail industry, created in 1992. BRC has published standards for best practices for food and manufacturing for over 2 decades, and it also publishes the on-pack recycling standard for the UK. BRC Global Food Standard has been in existence since 1998, and in 2000 was the first food safety standard to be recognized by GFSI organization, which means that the standard meets their benchmark criteria for acceptance. The standard is designed as a total quality management program, and it does include both food safety requirements and quality requirements, which food manufacturers must meet in order to be certified. It also does have requirements for human safety, which is also a very important part of any organization. So in keeping with the complete supply chain approach, there are 4 standards under the BRC umbrella. They have BRC Global Food Standard, there's the storage and distribution, there's IOP for food packing, and then there's consumer products. Today, it's just, we're looking at the Global Food Standard under BRC. Major areas that are covered by the standard are your senior management commitment and continuous improvement. You have the food safety and quality management system. You have site standards, product control, process control, and then personnel. There's other standards in BRC, but these are the major ones that once you get these down, the others are a lot more simpler. So for senior management, this is what they call a fundamental requirement. It's one that has to be in there. It's basically, it's just showing that the company's senior management demonstrates that they are fully committed to the implementation of the requirements of the global standard for food safety, and to processes which facilitate continual improvement of the food safety and quality management systems. Basically, it's saying that the senior management is going to stand by and help employees get the correct working tools so that they can become BRC certified. They're committed to, put money into the plant or the facility to help get the processes up and running, and to always continually improve on their processes also. So in this standard, of course, the site shall have a documented policy which states their intentions to meet the obligation to produce a safe, legal, and authentic product. That statement will have to be signed by persons with the overall responsibility for the site. Usually that's, the president, the CEO, vice president, owners, people that are ultimately responsible. Then it will be communicated to all staff. A lot of times it's also printed and put in a central location for everyone to see, visitors and staff. The site senior management shall define and maintain a clear plan for development and always continuing to improve the food safety and the quality culture. So that should include defined activities involving all sections of the site that have an impact on food safety, an action plan indicating how activities will be undertaken and measured, and intended timescales, and then a review of effectiveness of completed activities. So that's just looking at, if something is out of date, how they're going to improve it, what their time scale is, and then once it's done, show the effectiveness of that completed activity. The site's management shall ensure that clear objectives are defined to maintain, improve safe, legal, and quality products. So documentation and targeted ideas and objectives need to be clear so that they can be successful. Clearly communicated to relevant staff, and they're monitored and the results are reported at least quarterly to senior site management. That's where you should have a management meeting at least once a quarter to show what's going on, how things are going, any projects going on, what your quality's been, has there been recalls, have you lost product for certain reasons? This is a very important part of this, and this shows the senior management's commitment to making safe and quality foods. So during the management meetings, they're attended by the senior management. Does say that it's minimum of annually. It's better to do it quarterly, because the more you do it, the better you get at it, and you can fix issues in your plant in a faster time frame. So the review process would include previous management review of action plans and timeframes, results of any internal, second party, or third party audits, any objectives that have not been met, to understand why they have not been met. You use this information and it shall be used when seeing the future objectives and to see when and where we can meet those objectives. You'll look at your customer complaints and any customer feedback, any incidences, withdrawals, or recalls. Look at your corrective actions on issues you've had, anything that's out of spec or non-conforming products and materials, how many, where they came from, and did you fix the issues? You'll look at the effectiveness of the system for HACCP, your effectiveness for your food defense system, and your authenticity. And then you'll also look at all your resources and the requirements for them. Then these meetings shall be documented and used to revise the objectives, the decisions and the actions agreed within the review process shall be effectively communicated to appropriate staff and employees with actions implemented with agreeable timeframes. So you want to be able to tell, your employees what you're doing, when you think it's going to get done. And if something doesn't meet a time frame, explain to them why. A lot of times just getting the employees information helps them understand what's going on, and then they get back behind you, and it makes for a happier employee. The site shall also demonstrate meeting programs which enable food safety, legal integrity, and quality issues to be brought up to the attention of senior management. These meetings shall occur at least monthly. So this is like meetings with employees. Let them know that they should not be afraid to report anything that is out of spec or that they think would be harmful to the product. We usually have meetings every morning with each department. They're 5-10 minute meetings. It doesn't have to be, in a conference room. It's right on the floor. Employees will bring up any issues, and it's a good, easy way of getting information to employees, but then also letting them get us information that we need. The company shall also have a confidential reporting system to enable staff to report concerns relating to product safety. So some people don't feel comfortable saying things in a big group. So there should be a confidential way of reporting issues. You can do like a box, and people can put, write on a piece of paper their issues. Some companies have like a recorded phone line, but it's a good way to help the employees help you make a better product. The company senior management shall provide the human and financial resources required to produce safe food in compliance with requirements of the standard. The company senior management shall have a system in place to ensure that the site is kept informed of and reviews any scientific and technical developments, industry codes of practices, new risks to authenticity of raw materials, and all relevant legislation in the country where the product will be sold. And that is something that is important, because sometimes you're the country where you're making the product, you want to know what the legal legislation is in the country where your product is being sold, because that's where you're going to actually want to have your standard at. The site shall have a genuine original hard copy or electronic version of the current standard available, and beware of any changes to the standard or protocol that are published on the BRC Global Standards website. Where the site is certified to the standard, it shall ensure that announced recertification audits occur on or before the audit date indicated on your certificate. And we'll get into that a little more at the end of the presentation. Where the site is certified to the standard, it shall ensure that an announced recertification audits occur on or before the date. The most senior production or operations manager on site shall participate in the opening and closing meetings of the audit. And then relevant departmental managers or their deputies shall be available as required during the audit. You also want to have employees available through the audit. They will talk to employees, and sometimes the employees are your best line of defense because they're the ones that are on the floor. The site senior management shall ensure that any root causes of any nonconformities against the standard identified at a previous audit have been effectively addressed to prevent reoccurrence. And then the BRC logo and references to certification will only be used in accordance with conditions of use detailed in the audit protocol section of the standard. So once you become BRC certified, you will be able to use their logo and references. So food safety and the quality management system part of BRC. This has 11 sections. Food safety and the quality manual, your document control, record completion and maintenance, internal audits, supplier and raw material approval, and performance monitoring, your specifications, corrective and preventative actions, control of non-conforming product, traceability, complaint and handling, and then management of incidents, product withdrawal, and product recalls. Now, a product withdrawal is when the company will withdraw a product from the market for any reason. It could be, you know, just a quality issue. It could be something on the packaging, but there's nothing wrong with the product. A product recall is when the government says, or a inspection agency in the States, it's USDA, FDA, when they tell you that you have to recall product for safety issues. So a food safety and quality manual. So the company's processes and procedures to meet the requirements of the standard shall be documented to allow consistent application, facilitate training, and support due diligence in the production of a safe product. So you'll put together it can be an electronic version, or it can be something that you print out, but it's the food safety quality manual of all your processes, all your procedures, and all your specifications. Document control. The company shall operate an effective document control system to ensure that only the correct versions of documents of all forms are available and in use. This one is very important because if you change your documents and they don't get to the employees on the floor, then you're not in compliant. So having a good document control program is very important. So record completion and maintenance. The site shall maintain genuine records to demonstrate the effective control of product safety, legality, and quality. So you want to make sure that whenever records are completed, that they're completed at the time of observance, at the time the product was made, and that they are done in a quality manner, a legible manner. Internal audits. The company shall be able to demonstrate that it verifies the effective application of food safety plan and the implementation of the requirements of the global standard for food safety. So you want to do your own internal audits to make sure that what you're saying you're doing, you're actually doing, and that the employees understand what you're doing. So you have your supplier and raw material approval and performance monitoring. So you want to have an effective supplier approval and monitoring system to ensure that any potential risks from raw materials, and that does include packaging, are safe and authentic and legal, and helps make the quality of the final product good. So you don't want to, you want to get COAs from your suppliers. That way they can show that they have the same systems in place that you have, and that you know you're using good material. So some of these supplier controls that you want to include would be anything with raw materials, all your packaging suppliers, your pest control supplier, laundry services, contracted cleaning, contracted servicing and maintenance of equipment. If you have forklifts and someone comes in to maintenance your forklift, any transportation and distribution. If you have offsite storage of ingredients or packaging, offsite packaging of your products, any lab testing, catering services, and waste management. Specifications shall exist for raw materials, finished products, and any product or service which could affect the integrity of the finished product. So it's not just specifications on your finished product, but you want to have specifications for any raw materials coming in. You know, weights, micro counts, bags. If you have bags of stuff and the bag is ripped, that's a specification. You don't want a ripped bag. So you need to put all that in a document showing these are our specifications for any raw materials or packaging materials that we have. corrective and preventative actions plan. So you'll demonstrate that you use information from identified failures in the food safety and quality management system, and you make the necessary corrective and preventative actions. And it can just be a real simple spreadsheet that says this happened on this date, this is what we did to fix it. Doesn't need to be fancy, doesn't need to be, you know, all big, just simple and to the point, just so they can see that when there are deviations, that this is how you correct them and this is how you stop it in the future. So control of non-conforming product. You just want to ensure that if anything is out of spec, that you have a correct way of preventing it from being released and being sent out to any customers. Then you have your traceability. This is where you want to be able to trace any raw materials from the original supplier. You also want to be able to trace your finished product. So you should be able to trace everything from the very beginning to the very end. Your complaint and handling. So this would be where you have some customer complaints. You want a running log of them to see where your issues are from a customer point of view. You can look at this, you know, once a quarter to see where your issues are and how to effectively fix them. And then that can help you reduce reoccurring complaints. Management of incidents, product withdrawal, and product recall. So you'll have a plan in place that will help you in the event you have to withdraw product or recall product. So it'll say, basically your plan will say who does what, who's responsible for what, and the time frame that you want to have. Usually you should be able to know where all your product is within about 4 hours and get to those customers so that they can pull that product. So BRC implementation and training. There are many different organizations that have trainings. BRC itself does have its own trainings on their website. NSF International also does trainings for BRC. There's the Safe Food Alliance, Safe Food Hub Training. You can go to any of these websites and they have tons of information on there. And a lot of times there's a lot of smaller ones too, but these are the 4 big ones that I've worked with almost every one of those. So for your site, you need at least 1 person that is certified. If you can, 2 are recommended, because if somebody's out for the day or if something happens, you always have that 1 person there, but you need to have 1 person certified at your facility. Then that person will train the employees in their specific area, because not all employees need to know everything in the whole plant, just in their area. And then you should have the initial training and a refresher training every year. This right here is an example of our audits. So we do audits in the plant every week, and it's just a very simple form. This one shows it's the warehouse. Basically, are the employees dressed properly? Yes, they were. Are they following sanitary practices? Yes. Are they following the GMPs? Yes. For your facility, you'll look and see what questions you need to ask. And then at the bottom, there's comments. So there was a bag of starch that didn't have a sticker or label. The purple tags were on top of salts, which in our facility, we can't have that. Bottles for our Slingshot yogurt were torn and they exposed the bottles. So this is where you would write other comments. So we have some general ones that everybody looks at in each section, and then you just have other comments of what we see. And this is an example of the cooler. Only issue here was they saw wooden chips from pallets were broken off. So we asked the cooler to clean their floor. And then if a certain department isn't in use, you can do some of the items. So like cream cheese was not in use, so there were no employees there, but you can still see if the items in the area are boxed and in good condition, if containers are labeled correctly, if it was clean, did they have caps on pipes and drums, are tools put away properly? So even if there's nobody there, you can still do an audit to make sure that your employees are actually cleaning up and putting things away properly. Auditing protocol. So the global standard for food safety provides companies with a series of options with which to be audited and certified. It's flexible in its response to market demand and allows companies to choose an audit option which best suits their customers' requirements, the factory operation, and the maturity of their food safety system. So there's different levels you can have. So if you're just starting off, you're not going to be in the level with someone who's been there for 5 years. It's a gradual level. In an effort, every effort has been made to ensure that the content of the audit protocol is accurate at the time of publication. However, there can be subject changes, and references should be made on the BRC website. That's where all your changes will be published. It's a great website. They have a lot of information there. There it is again, and they can review any appropriate guidelines there. So once you've got through your BRC training and you've worked with your employees, audit preparation. So you'll figure out whether you want to do an announced or unannounced with or without additional modules. And that's going to go through, like I said, use that roadmap to BRC. That will help you decide where you're going to go. Then you'll do a self-assessments of all the standards. And there are some in the BRC website, there are some self-assessments templates that you can use. And then you'll select your certification body. That's the organization or company that will come in and do your audit, and they'll work with you. And they will help you define the scope of your audit. So you want to ensure that information and appropriate personnel are available for the audit. Even if it's an unannounced audit, you need to make sure that you have someone available for all the information and for every department. So it is best to have 2 people that know each area in case somebody's out for that day if you do have an unannounced audit. Then you'll provide the information to the certification body. And then you'll define the audit date. If it's announced, you'll define the date and you'll agree on the duration based on the audit calculator. Once the audit starts and they're on site, you'll have your opening meeting. And in your opening meeting, you want to have, senior management, and then you can have like leads and stuff like that too if you want there. It depends on what your facility is. Then there's usually a production facility inspection. So they'll walk around the plant, they'll interview employees, and they want to see your process. They'll also do a document review. Then they'll give a traceability challenge. So what they'll say is, on this date, you made this product, so trace it for me and tell me what your raw ingredients were and where your final product is now. They'll review your labels. They'll review of production facilities inspections, and the final review of findings by the auditor. Once that happens, then the closing meeting, the auditor will review his or her findings and tell you any non-conformities and what you did conform to. So for any non-conformities and any corrective actions that you are going to be required to do, you have 28 days from the date of the audit to complete those and then submit information to the certification body. If it's something that you can't complete in those 28 days, what they want is a plan. Say you need to build something. build a cover. And it's going to take longer than 28 days because of construction and getting materials. As long as you have a plan and a guideline of timeframes, then they will accept that as a corrective action. But they do require that when you do finish it, you also resubmit it to show, yes, we did actually finish it. So we did what we said we were going to do. The certification body will review all the evidence within 14 days. If the corrective actions are satisfactory, a certificate and the audit report and the issuing grade will be issued, and you will be ready to go and be ready for next year. So after the audit happens, you want to have ongoing maintenance of the standard and continual improvement. You want to make sure that that's when those audits come in handy with the lab techs, or your weekly audits, because you don't want this to be a one-time thing. You want to keep going and do it every day. You don't want like a month before your audit, oh my gosh, we have to do all this. No, you want to do it every single day and every week. And if you just keep those audits going, in internal audits, that will help your employees get used to it. And then they won't be so scared when the auditor shows up. You'll get your login details for BRC from the auditor. Then once you get your certification, you can use the logo, and you'll have ongoing communication with the certification body, and you'll reschedule audit dates. If it's an unannounced audit, they will give you a time frame of, I believe it's 90 days. So, and then they can show up at any time if it's an unannounced audit. So the certification process itself is efficient. With an on-site audit, there is no requirement for desk study audits. Now, right now with COVID-19, I'm not quite sure what some are doing. We did do a desk type audit, sending them paperwork, and then they came here, but for a shorter time. So it just depends on what's going on. When you recertify, BRC accommodates requests for voluntary audits at any time. So if for some reason that you had an issue or a problem and you want to recertify at any time, BRC will do that. Additionally, BRC certification covers food safety, quality, and also legality, which is a great concern to any stakeholder navigating the complexity of food law. So BRC certification covers a lot of different areas. So after receiving and accepting a proposal from the accredited certification body for BRC, businesses may choose to conduct a pre-audit. So what that is they'll come in and they'll audit you, and they'll help you identify any gaps. That way, when you do your final audit, you're ahead of the game. Now, some companies will go ahead and do the pre-audit, and they're doing so well that they just turn it into the regular audit at that point. So then, like I said, once you get your review, the corrective actions are submitted within 28 days, then BRC certification will be granted pending a review by the authorizing certification manager. As with all standards, BRC regular recertification audits are conducted at intervals of 12 months for audits that for companies that get a grade A or B. And then if you get a C rating, your audit is every 6 months. These re-audits also look at steps taken since the initial audit to deal with past nonconformities and whether the re-audit was conducted by the due date. So I thank everybody for your time. I hope this helps. And any questions?
Okay, thank you, Sherry, for this informative session. Very helpful and informative. And let's jump to the questions. Okay, the first question is about the food safety culture. And you know that there is a new element under the BRC that was issued early 2020 regarding the food safety culture. So do you have any comments about that?
Let's see. Well, food safety culture. So that is just the culture of your employees. So you want to have a good culture in your plant, and that is just helping or showing them that what you're doing is what you want them to do. I think it's a great thing that's been brought in BRC because it helps make the product safer, and it gets your employees more involved in the process. So I think having a food safety culture is just great because it just gets employees more involved.
Yeah, good. And what you do at your facilities at the US to develop this food safety culture? I mean, do you depend on the training, demonstrations, mentorship?
Yeah.
I mean, what you do? Just share with us what you do, what you are focusing on.
We do a lot of trainings. Like I said, we have one of the things that a lot of companies have gone to is we do 5 or 10 minute meetings at the beginning of shifts. That helps a lot. And it's just reinforcing, make sure that you wear your hair nets, your beard nets, you sanitize your hands. Just reminding people of the basics, because sometimes that's what actually your food safety culture is. You get complacent, you just maybe you're having a bad day and you just aren't in the mood here to be at work, but you're here. So we have our meetings just to remind everybody why we're here, and how to make better product. Trying to think, some of the other things we'll do is we'll kind of do drawings, or every 6 months might do some kind of barbecue or ice cream social if everything is looking good. If we don't see anybody abusing the food safety culture, if everybody's wearing their hair nets, their beard nets, they're sanitizing their hands properly, and everything looks good, we'll do little things like that to help promote it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, as you ended your presentation with the auditing, and as we are in the COVID-19 era, so have you did any kind of? You said you did the desk study, and have you did any kind of remote auditing during this?
We've done one remote audit through phone, because we don't have it in the facility here. It's hard with our internet. So we did it by the phone, and we just took little videos of the areas and sent it to them. We do have one coming up tomorrow too. So we're going to see how this one goes. This will be a bigger, longer one where we actually have to submit more paper. So we submitted our files, uploaded them to their website, and they are going to review them. We have it tomorrow. And then we, like again said, we'll take our phones around and video stuff and show them. We'll bring employees into the conference room to where they can also ask them questions, like in this webinar like this. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not
is
sure.
It better? Do you think that is better as for the COVID-19 conditions to do this remote audits, or I mean on-site audits? That's one of the question as well.
Yeah.
From your experience
due to
with
COVID-19, I do think it's kind of better, because then we're not bringing someone into our plant that possibly could contaminate the plant. So on that aspect, it's better. What's hard about it is sometimes it's easier for the auditor to be here and see it themselves than even on video or trying to explain it. So I don't know. I like the audits where it's an on-site audit. I just think that it's a better situation because then,
I need your consent on a few items to
Sorry.
continue.
Because then the auditor can help you, a lot of times they will give you pointers and they will help point things out when they're there. With a remote audit, it's a little bit harder for them to do that. I think we get more information on on-site audits.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so a question from Ms. Mona. She said, I have my startup green at the ruler and how I prepare for the PRC program for the farm. She started up her farm.
Yeah.
And she wants to prepare. How to start?
I guess the first biggest thing would be to just get an audit of your facility and see what you have and what you don't have. That would be the biggest thing. You can go to like I said, those websites. The map is a really good one because that will really help you figure out what audit scheme you're going to is best for you. And it will help you figure out where to start because every plant, every industry is different on how to start. That would be the best thing.
Thank you, Mr. Khalil Saidi. If the inspection for certificate accreditation will be one time a year, how can I trust if the institution will apply PRC rules during the year? I mean, that's one of the, I mean, the audit is once a year or more.
Yeah.
So just a visit, 1 or 2 days, 3 days.
Yeah, usually it's a 2 or 3 day visit, but how you make sure that the facility is doing it throughout the year. That's where the internal audits for that facility come. As long as they're doing their internal audits, then they can show that they don't do it just once a year, but they do it year round. That's where the documentation comes into play.
Yep. So they need to depend and develop their internal audit.
Yes, internal audits are very crucial. And then, like I said, documentation, that is very crucial. You have to document. If you don't document, then it never happened. So that's how you prove it.
Yeah. Okay, from Mr. Abdullah, the difference between ISO and BRC. Why should my facility choose PRC and not ISO?
That is pretty much just a choice for the senior management of your facility. Some people like, BRC, some people like the ISO. I think ISO has more, if I remember correctly, it has more documentation requirements than BRC. BRC is more of a hands-on than ISO. It just would depend on your facility and then what level of certification you're going to want. Are you going outside of the country or are you just shipping in the country? So you have to answer all those questions to choose the correct certification. There's not a real easy answer.
Yeah. Good. Okay, so question about the ATP swaps in packing houses. So is there any guidelines for this point so they can make sure that the sanitation program is going well?
For ATP swabs?
Yes.
So in the dairy industry, at least, we have, our guidelines are a count of 0. I mean, that's the bottom line. It passes or it fails. So it just depends on the material. A lot of it in the dairy industry is stainless steel, so we can get it to 0. Now, I do know there are some industries where there's certain types of plastics where it's really porous, and you might have a different threshold or level. So it may be 100, a count of 100 is good. That's something that you would have to work with your facility. And my suggestion would be like over a 2 or 3 month period of time, do a good cleaning, do your ATP swabs, then maybe plate micro. And if like you have a count on your ATP of 50, but your micro was showing less than 10, you can go up to a count of 50 and be safe. But you need to have, like a 3 months worth of information to show that.
Okay, thank you. Again, from Mr. Mona, how to be a certified lead auditor for PRC?
So how you become an auditor? There are auditing, NSF does some great auditing trainings and certifications. That's where mine is from, is NSF. So I really like their programs. I think BRC might have one, I'm not sure, but I really like NSF. So you can take those. I think they are doing them online.
Yeah.
There's some great places.
Okay, thank you. Okay, question about the difference between TASAB and VASAB, TACCP and VACCP.
Ooh, now those, see, we have HACCP here, so I'm not sure on those.
Yeah.
That I'd actually have to do some research and look at that.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, so FBI, for instance, oh, okay. So, yes, getting the certificates prerequisite to exporting from Egypt to Europe. Okay, so just a question about, is it required to, from Egypt to Europe for exporting products from Egypt to Europe to have the BRC as prerequisite? I mean,
I don't think it's necessarily a BRC requirement. It's probably a GFSI scheme requirement, depending on the companies that you are selling to. And you'd have to look at the legal requirements for that country. I'm not familiar with Europe, but that's, I would go back to that country's requirements and see what they say.
Okay, thank you. Okay, how can we implement the PRC document system easily, or there are a checklist? Can we apply it? How can we take the materials? Okay, the materials, okay. So the checklist and is there a checklist for the PRC and some recommendations for you for them to implement the documentation easily?
There's really not a checklist. I could probably put something together and get something sent out that could help. Might take me, a week or so, but I could probably do something like that. But BRC doesn't technically put together a checklist.
Certification bodies in Egypt, actually, they have this checklist. Sometimes they share it with their beneficiaries or their clients to make sure that they are applying what is the needed requirements. So there are some checklists I can share with you, and you can, if you would like to refine it and do some review. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we can do that. That'll work.
Thanks. How to make the audit more beneficial, from Dr. Abdurrahman, how to make the audit more beneficial for the facility than being as documented inspection.
So for the audits, the biggest thing there is when you do your first audit, you go through and see what's good and can be improved. So it's not really an inspection. You're just auditing the area to make sure that you're complying with your standards and you're doing what you say you are doing. They can only, they don't have to be, 2-hour audits. It can be 10 minutes. You just want to kind of quickly get a quick snapshot of what everybody's doing. And that's all we do. Like I tell my lab techs, it takes about 10 minutes. Then we put all this information together and I send it to all the supervisors, the results. That way they know where to work with their employees on what needs to be improved.
Okay. Good. All countries are required to implement BRC standards for export. Just a question.
Yeah, see that it's by country. So it depends on what country you're going to, and then the if it's BRC or SQF, that's just something you really have to look at the requirements of that country.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, I think we don't have other questions here. So, okay, at the end, I would like to thank you, Sherry, for your informative session and very beneficial answers and comments on the questions of the attendees. I'd like to thank all attendees for the listening and interacting and participation. And also I'd like to thank Hea for the coordination and the collaboration to make this webinar happen. I just want to inform all of you that we are going to share the recording of the this webinar, the link in our YouTube channel once we finish the editing and the montage. And we'll share this with you. In addition to, we'll send the presentation, the PowerPoint presentation. Thank you all for your active participation, and see you in another webinar. Stay safe. Goodbye.